Kurt Helin joins us now on the Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline, ProBasketballTalk.com. And wouldn't you know it, on the last week of the regular season, he finally predicts the correct 9 seed. Congratulations, Kurt.
I like to think I come on late, but I eventually get it right.
That's right. You're a late bloomer. That's all right. You're like that hot girl that she was ugly all the way up until her sophomore year of high school. But before that, then she just blossomed. It was beautiful. Good job, Kurt.
You're the first person to put me in a sentence with a hot girl in a long time. So.
Kurt Helin with us. All right, so there are so many different things I want to talk about, not just with the Thunder, obviously, but with the NBA playoffs that are going to start this weekend. But let me start with the Thunder. What were your expectations? Obviously, you had them into the playoffs for most of the year, even with the injuries. So what happened down the stretch, in your opinion?
I think a couple of things happened. A, the Pelicans didn't roll over. I mean, I give them some credit. That team fought through some stuff. And look, if you'd asked me about the 9-seed thing the night before, or the morning of the final day of the season, I didn't think they were going to beat the Spurs. I mean, that was a great effort by them, and that's probably their best game of the year and a genuine surprise. To me, I think the injuries caught up with them in this sense. A, they couldn't stop anybody. The defense just went to heck, and I think that was the biggest issue. And the offense, as much as Westbrook was putting up numbers, if it's one guy putting up numbers in the NBA, and it becomes predictable and a little bit defendable, and he was fantastic and amazing in carrying this team as far as he could, but I don't know that they needed a little more, and obviously the injuries kind of tied into that. So it's unfortunate because to me, that's a team that, if you're healthy, we're talking today about whether you guys can win it all, and it's unfortunate that we don't get to see that play out in the West. Although the West is deep enough without you guys. So.
I can't tell you for not having a local team in it, because look, I'm not going to lie. I don't root for the Thunder because I'm a super fan, but
you are.
Get out of here, Todd. You know better than that. But I do root because I like covering playoff basketball, and I don't get to. But that being said, not being able to cover playoff basketball this year for me, I'm about as excited, relatively speaking, for a Western Conference than I've ever been. This is crazy. But let me ask you about Scott Brooks. What was your reaction when you saw the Adrian Wojnarowski report?
Yeah, it wasn't. That's not a complete and total surprise. I mean, it's not. That rumor has been out there for a while that they would have to take a look, and it really. I mean, look, I think you guys realize this. It really comes down to Durant. What do we have to do to keep Kevin Durant? If we think we can bring in somebody who can whip this team into shape and get us, get a healthy team to a title, and is more likely to do that than Brooks, do we have to make that move? And they might, honestly. I think, look, as you well know, there are plenty of detractors, probably in Oklahoma City and certainly around the league with his offense and him. I think two things have to happen, though. A, you go talk to KD and Westbrook. Like, if you want to keep your stars and you keep them included in the loop, you don't have to do what they say, but you've got to consult them. You've got to make them feel a part of it. So you have that conversation with them. And then the second part is, if you're going to make this move, who have you got that's better? Like, you can't get George Karl now. So if you can't get George Karl, who are you going to get? The name thrown out there in the Woj article was Billy Donovan. Like, there are a lot of guys around the NBA front office guys who love Billy Donovan, who think he is a quality NBA. That's the reason he got a job before. He just backed out of it. He can get one this summer if he wants it. They believe in him. But if you're going to go into this we have to win now mode, is bringing in a college coach, without NBA experience the answer?
It's bizarre.
A guy that somehow, takes you over the top. Look, Brad Stevens has done a great job building these guys over a couple of years.
Yeah, that's the Celtics, right.
Right, but they're in a very different place.
Right.
Steve Kerr came in and did this in his first year where Mark Jackson, more than Mark Jackson could do. But that's a very different, he was a GM in the NBA. This is a guy with a very different, set. So I'm not sure I think Donovan, look, if you're in Orlando, that's a great hire. If you're, in even New Orleans or some of the places that may be looking at him eventually, that's a great hire, but I don't know that it's a great hire for you. And I don't know who they're going to get that's an instant upgrade. There might be a couple guys I'd like, if you're going to do this and you can get somebody like Alvin Gentry, who's probably the best offensive mind, who's an assistant coach in the league right now, or somebody like that, then you can maybe consider it, but you better be sure.
Kurt Helin is with us from Pro Basketball Talk here on 107.7 The Franchise. You can follow him on Twitter at Basketball Talk. Is where you can follow Kurt on Twitter. All right, Kurt, I've been getting hit up with this a lot because I'm a Celtics fan in Oklahoma City, and I know that you get this question a whole lot, but Thunder fans are asking it right now with the team missing out on the playoffs. Does the playoff system, the seeding system, need to change where a Thunder team at 45-37 misses the playoffs, and then the Nets get in at 38-44 in the East? Are you for a change, and if so or if not, why or why not?
I am. I think I would love to see the best 16 get in. By the way, your Celtics would have creeped in. They would have been the 16 seed.
That's right, people. Leave me alone, people, on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, granted, they might have played a little. We'll never know quite how the end of the season would have played out differently, but as stood, that would have been the one change. The Nets would have been out, and you guys would have been in. I personally want to see that because I want to see the 16 best teams. And yeah, it's unbalanced in favor of the West right now. Eventually, like it was, in the Jordan era, eventually it'll shift. Eventually, the East will be the power again. The pendulum will eventually swing that way. And to me, then it should be. Look, I want to see the 16 best teams, and I'm not too worried about. You guys had to do it against a tougher schedule. Look, you did it against a tougher schedule. You put up 45 wins against the tougher schedule. It just wasn't enough. That's the frustrating thing. To me, I would like to see it. Now, that said, we're not going to see it. Like, not for years. There's a lot of resistance within the ownership, particularly the Eastern Conference, to doing this right now and doing it really fast, even though it would make while it might be for the good of the game, I don't see some owners in the middle and bottom of the Eastern Conference thinking, it would make the bloggers happy. I'm willing to give up a couple games of home playoff revenue.
Right. You mentioned how good the West has been, and you and Zach talked about how excited you are for the Western Conference playoffs, and I think all of us are. The Warriors finished 67-15, Kurt, and I went back and looked. Only 5 teams in NBA history have won more than 67 games in a regular season. Are we kind of downplaying how good the Warriors have been this year, especially with the way the Spurs played late in the season?
I think there's a little of that. I think that there's not a lot of people who buy fully into them. I think that there's, look, I'll use the example of Charles Barkley because he did it on national TV on TNT the other day. He doesn't buy into them, thinks, hey, they're a jump shooting team, they're going to come apart. I think that mentality is still out there with them, and people don't appreciate how good this team really is and how diverse they are at both ends of the floor. So they're going to have to prove it. Look, they're going to have to prove it, but pretty much for every team that's finished with the point differential that they had, and not just the wins, but I mean, they won their games by, I think it was 12 points a game or 12 points per 100, I forget what the final number was exactly, but, it was, everybody in that ballpark, outside of like one exception, made the finals and or won it. Like, they should be there, and they're going to have to prove that, but I think you're right. I think if they do that, then suddenly we look back and go, wow, that team was really good. But if they get beat by the Spurs in the conference finals, they'll be, conventional wisdom will hold, if you will.
Last question. When would it be better if Presti had the notion, because I don't want it to sound like I'm in favor of a Brooks firing, because I'm not. Kurt Helin with his ProBasketballTalk.com. If Presti wanted to get rid of Brooks, when would be the best timing? Now? After next year? When? If you're going to do it, if you really got these doubts, you need to do it now, because depending on what, again, I'm going to talk to Durant, but if you're really about winning before he leaves and making it hard for him to leave and you think somebody else can do the better job, better to do it now than later. Better to do it before he thinks about it leaving than after. But I'm with you. I'm not sure
that A, Durant wants that, and B, that there's an obvious better option sitting there.
How's Boomer?
Shockingly quiet this morning, but
yes, he is.
Bustle him if you want to hear some barking.
No, that's all right. But feel free to go out there, and we can have when we finish our conversations every day, we can have a last-minute chat with Boomer.
All right, Kurt, we got to end you on one of these one-word questions, right?
Yeah, a new one, huh?
New one. Hoisting the Larry O'Brien Trophy will be
Steph Curry, Golden State Warriors.
Wow. 4 words. Bye, Kurt.
Yeah, Steph didn't cover it. Sorry. I should have said that.
That's right. Steph Curry. Actually, that's 5 words. See you later, buddy. Kurt Helin on 107.7 The Franchise.